My name is Judy Feldhausen, and I am co-hosting with my great friend Guinea Jolly today. Unleash Your Free Spirit has been going on, as Guinea mentioned, for over 3 years now, and we have a waiting list for speakers. We're booked through the end of the year already. It's so great to have people that want to share their personal stories, the hardships that they went through, the challenges that they faced, and how they came out the other side better, stronger, happier. And today I am so excited to be able to have our guest speaker who has had her own challenges. And I would like Guinea to please introduce Brandi to us today.
It'll be my pleasure. Absolute pleasure will be mine. Brandy, oh my God. You already heard her story about the dog named Hitler. Now, now you'll hear from a founding partner of Farm from a Box. Now, the name itself is intriguing, right? She will really nudge you to have the mindset of a free spirit, which is key to having courage to think beyond status quo. So she really tells people to start thinking about life, of how togetherness and technology can transform our world. And first, when I met her and I heard her TEDx talks, I said, oh my God, this woman has to become my friend. She really inspired me. She inspired me, and the words she shared with me. So please, what I'm nudging all of you to do is, if you're not connected with her on LinkedIn, if you have not seen her TEDx talks, please do that. Learn about her phenomenal concept about farm from a box. And the word she shared with me, I hope I say it correctly, Ushi Rikiano. Ushi Rikiano sounds like a tongue twister, but has a phenomenal deep meaning. And once you get it, you are going to make that part of your vocabulary in every day. Without further ado, let me introduce you to you, my friends, my great friend Brandi. Brandi, go and bring us the joy which you bring to the whole world.
Kitty, thank you so much. I really, that was a beautiful intro, and I'm really happy to be here. Judy, thank you so much as well. And hello to my dear friend Sharon. It's been too long since we've caught up, so I'm really glad that you're able to join also. Um, I'm excited to be here and be able to connect with you. Very much like what Guinea said, when people gather and talk and share information and knowledge and lessons and stories, this is the transformative stuff. So even though it may seem small, these are the lessons that we end up taking with us as we go forward in everything that we do in life. So really quick, let me dive in. And I may actually give a little context to Ushida Kianu. So I co-founded Farm from a Box, gosh, about 10 years ago. And we really stepped in from the perspective of absolutely everyone in the world deserves good, clean, nutritious food, and food that was really grown in a way that is also beneficial to the planet. So we decided at the time, we're going to bring in clean technology and put it into one toolkit system to be able to help people be able to grow their own food directly within their own communities. The important part about this is that we see this certainly within many areas within the United States, food deserts, different rural communities, but we also see it overseas, where oftentimes communities simply do not have the technology to help stabilize good, reliable, healthy crop growth, especially with our changing climate and drought conditions that we have now. So that's what we did, is we decided to put solar power, solar powered pumping, drip irrigation, cold storage, all of those fundamental tools into one toolkit that can be delivered on site. So let me loop this in, because technology is only one aspect of things, but it's really about what that enables. So the funny thing for me and for my family is, never in a million years would I have expected to be working in agriculture. Never in a million years. But what agriculture enables in our lives and in our world, in our families, is what I'm extremely passionate about. Food is that connective tissue that brings everybody together. It fuels us. It literally makes up our body. It can make or break our own health. So it's incredibly important. And there's also something about what we've been experiencing in the past several years that really highlights its growing importance as well. Somebody had mentioned that on LinkedIn, in terms of shortages of supply, the panic that we all felt during COVID of, do we have access in our grocery stores to be able to get the food that we need? Crises that can happen, the war in Ukraine and how that's really driven some pretty significant areas of food insecurity. So we know that this is incredibly, incredibly important. Stepping into starting a company in an area that is not your expertise requires a lot of passion, a lot of courage, and it also requires a lot of openness. So in order to really be able to pursue this passion, we really jumped into it saying, we see an issue, we know that we can approach it differently and better, and how do we go about doing that? We're going to call in all of our superheroes to be able to help us. When we first founded this, we really surrounded ourselves with all of the experts that we could possibly get our hands on. Farmers from all over the world, academics, technologists, learners of all kind, and we just listened. We listened, we asked, we listened. And that's how we really developed the product. Now, to go to Ushirikianu, we like to have our farmers name every single farm that we deploy, because that sense of community ownership is incredibly, incredibly important to us as a very foundational value. So our very first sale actually was to the United Nations World Food Program. And for that particular project, we were going to support a refugee settlement outside of a community in Tanzania. And so if you work in refugee settlements, sometimes the host community and the refugees that are coming in can also have a bit of a competition for resources, because resources are often scarce in a lot of those areas. So we really came in with this technology and this infrastructure to be able to uplift what food production could be for both the host community that we were working with, but also for the refugees within the neighboring settlement. So as a quick story aside, to be able to explain Ushirikianu, the day that it came time for us to be able to say, okay, this is your unit, this is your farm, what do you want to name it? Something that's meaningful to you. And we never know what people are going to come up with, but everybody had huddled around this table and came up with this slip of paper that said Ushirikianu, which is Swahili for the spirit of togetherness. And that was really the way that they wanted to approach this farm. Is they were going to farm together, they were going to grow together, they were going to eat together, and they were really going to be able to uplift both communities at the same time together. So from that frame, and Guinea, thank you for bringing that up, I think that spirit of togetherness, that spirit of how can we also help others through the work that we do, is really foundational, certainly to our company, but more importantly, to just as how we choose to be in the world and in life. As a founder, I'm a first-time founder, so all of this is new to me, quite frankly. So I'm always learning that spirit of working together has always been the way that we've gotten anything done. You can't get things done in a silo. And whether this is raising funding for your startup to be able to grow, bringing in new customers, coming face to face with challenges, market challenges, different dynamics. We've got to be able to approach it through this spirit of togetherness. And I also think one thing that is important to keep in mind is how we can use some of the tools of certainly togetherness to be able to combat things that could also hold us back. Fear is a huge one, through a lens of fear is where we get into this state of, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm not good enough. I must be getting it wrong. I'm missing something here. And you can shrink yourself But what I have really found, and this rings true in business, but also in my own life personally, that the more I can approach those moments of fear through sort of a bit of a stillness, a self-awareness of, okay, what's really behind the fear? Is it something that I'm excited about? Okay, great. I can transition that sense of fear into excitement. I can use it as a calibration point that this is something that is important and meaningful to me. So I can therefore sort of alchemize that fear into excitement for looking forward towards something. If it's a genuine fear where I'm like, I don't know how we're going to handle this situation, another way through that stillness to alchemize that fear and be able to fuel you is to really, again, just examine it. Like if it's coming from this position of, I don't know how to handle this, really approaching that question through curiosity and through expanding that range of what it is that you can predict some of those challenges or potentials to be, and just really look beyond and keep expanding it as much as possible. Sort of bring in this sense of wonder. I wonder if we do it this way. I wonder if this is possible. Suddenly that problem gets smaller and smaller, and you can really start to mine these interesting treasures out of it. I'll give you a quick example on this. COVID, my gosh, I think every business had a challenge that they experienced during COVID. For us, our entire pipeline was frozen of upcoming projects. We had upcoming planned projects with hotels. We had upcoming projects internationally to serve communities. We had upcoming projects with restaurants. Every single one of those were put on hold or canceled. And so suddenly we lost all of our planned revenue coming into the year. And of course, you well up in that feeling of panic of like, how am I going to make sure that I'm keeping the business alive? How am I going to make sure that I'm taking care of our team through this? How are we as a company going to be able to really weather this? And it really took our whole team coming together and feeling the panic of that moment, but really being able to openly discover where the opportunities are within it as well. And there's something about that number one, as a leader, to be honest and open and express truthfully where we are, I think also really brought the team together in this frame of like, we're in it together, that frame of togetherness. We're going to figure this out together, and everybody's ideas are also welcome. That I think has been a hugely fortifying aspect in terms of building a company, is to make sure that your actions are what sort of drives that culture, because that's what drives innovation. That's what drives a feeling of empathy amongst everybody as well. So the way that we ended up handling that was to really say, okay, what do we need as a company? And how can we as a company respond to the challenges that our users and our broader community, our market, is really feeling? And what we realized is we actually had a part of the solution that we could offer. In these breaks in supply chains where so many different areas were getting cut off from the traditional food supply that they had, or quite frankly, were never even included to begin with, so it made them even more fragile. We realized that our system could be dropped in to be able to pull up localized food production and build food independence as a solution to be able to drive much greater food security within those areas and market opportunities. So instead of deploying one unit one at a time, what we decided to do was deploy them as an entire constellation within a region. So if one area was really cut off, we're like, okay, what can we do if we drop in our system and activate the entire area to be able to grow the food that's necessary to be able to support the community and the region at large too? So it transitioned the way that we also view what our solution can do, and it really up-leveled it in a different way where we could make a much more significant impact too. So that's just one idea. Another one too that I have found that I wanted to discuss is really harnessing curiosity And that feeling of wonder and flexibility is a way of being able to manage pressure and manage disappointment. What happens when things don't happen the way that we want them to? When our expected result doesn't come to fruition? Do we allow ourselves to get completely mowed over with it? And do we allow ourselves to have to shrink from that? Or can we look at where maybe we had a habit, where maybe we had a blind spot, where that a different result came in enough for us to go, oh, okay, wait a minute, this was not expected. Let me understand where this is actually coming from. And this has come up in partnerships. This has come up in presentations where in my mind, I think this is a no-brainer. This makes nothing but sense, but I was actually missing something. So in taking a moment to be able to just sink in and be able to really inquire has been hugely, hugely beneficial for us as well. So I can keep talking about the lessons because boy, I'll tell you, over these 10 years, I have learned so many lessons that have also been dramatic personal growth change makers for us. And I continue to do so. But maybe it'll be more fun to get into some of the questions and answers at this point too. But if I can leave you with something, I want to make sure that we really think of how do we bring that spirit of being free, that free spiritedness into business. And that can really be this powerful, powerful alchemizer to fear, to shrinking, to dealing with uncertainties, to managing pressure. If we activate that feeling of wonder, of curiosity, that can really help expand what our perspective is too, and make us much, much, much more resilient and much more able to step into risk taking and feel supported in that place too.
Wow. Wow. Brandi, you can go on and on. Oh my goodness. Harnessing curiosity and wonder. Wow. What a message. What a message. Anybody in our community has a question for Brandi? This is your time to find an inspiration from a woman who has shown with her own example, her own actions, how you can change the world if you want to be in that part of the solution. Anybody, raise your hands, or you can put your question in the chat.
Hi,
I've got my virtual hand up, but Mark has his physical hand up.
Okay.
Mark.
No, Brandi, I just want to say I really enjoyed hearing your story, and especially the work you do. I myself am a garden coach and a gardener who helps people with their vegetable gardens. So I'm definitely interested in what it is that you do.
Oh, amazing, Mark. Thank you. Thank you. I would love to be able to connect. And it's another thing, gosh, we could talk about this for so long because I've also found, and I know that you know this too, the things that we learn by putting our hands in the soil and being a part of nature. You know, we learn powerful lessons like diversity makes us stronger. If you just grow one thing at a time, it makes you much more vulnerable to things where in essence, we need to make sure that we're mimicking nature and nature's wisdom in that too. And there's so many different lessons that we can learn from that too. So I'd love to be able to speak with you further.
Yes, I would love that too. I will send you a connection message on LinkedIn.
Yeah, great. Happy to.
Awesome. What I wanted to say was, if it's okay, I liked how that you took lemons and made lemonade. I mean, during COVID, we had just started to scale internationally, and things. We were spending some money trying to build a Canadian division for our company and different things. And what at first looked like fear and looked like uncertainty. Here we thought, we're sitting here teaching people that checking and savings accounts are killing them. And everybody in the world wants people to spend their last dollars with them, but nobody's talking to people about how where they're first putting their money is costing them millions. Mm-hmm. And so, we show people how to double their money by changing how they bank. So anyway, what we realized was we're holding the answer to the pandemic to all these people. And that's when a lot of these networks were born during COVID, because that's when people started really networking because we couldn't get out. We used to drive to events and live, And so I didn't even start networking until this spring. But at that time, other people were inviting us to their networks and podcasts. And that's when our business exploded. So I love to see how that people can take something that a lot of businesses were feeling like they were going to be destroyed and turn it into an opportunity for success. So,
Completely, Jason. That's an excellent, excellent example. And as tragic as COVID was, there has been a lot of good that has also come out of it. And I think that is one of those powerful lessons, right? Of another one that I like to do just in my own meditations also is this practice of holding center. How do we hold center in these times of just absolute crazy change? And this could be, the past 2 years of my life. In addition to COVID, I was also the caretaker for my aging grandmother. And so how do I manage caregiving for a loved one at the same time as trying to build a business, at the same time as trying to tend to myself, is this practice of really holding center and letting some things wash over you while you still remain anchored, and then they flood back. And then it allows you this opportunity to be able to see things with much more clarity. And to your point, Jason, be able to understand, wait a minute, I see an opportunity in this. This isn't necessarily a bad thing. Maybe this is just a point of transition. This is really a gift that we're being given in this change of perspective too. Because boy, if there's one thing that's constant, it's change. And so how do we make sure that we're being flexible within that, so that we can make sure that that's something that we can really use as a strength, as opposed to, oh God, not again.
yeah.
Be much more like a willow in this.
And one last thing before if you're interested in being a guest on a podcast, connect with me. I know 2 different podcasts that deal with preparation, and what you do needs to be listened, it needs to be heard by their audiences. So let's connect, and I'll help you make a couple connections where I think you can sell more of those. And I love what you do.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's very generous.
So the next person, Dr. Joy had raised her hand. Dr. Joy, please go ahead. Unmute yourself.
Thanks, Kenny. Love everything you said. One of the things I wanted to ask you, I know I can see that you have the ability to pivot and be resilient. No question about it. How were you able to inspire your team to come along with you? What practical things did you do? Or so that was my question, because food security it's going to be the next years on that. But
100%, Dr. Joy, and thank you so much for that question. I believe that it starts at the very beginning. Mm-hmm. I don't think that the effective way, in my experience as an employee back in the day that I was one, but certainly now, is really kind of that value of, you can get on board with something if you are on board with something. And that requires being on board with something from the very beginning. So I tend to really believe in transparency. I like to be transparent with our customers. I like to be transparent with our team, so that they are literally a part of some of the decision making. That doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be the ones that are directing everything, but I want everybody to know that they've got a voice within it, and that they can ask me questions, and that they can also disagree with some of the things, with some of the directions that the company may be coming up with. Because I know we all have blind spots. There are things that my experience is limited to, and there's things that somebody else has an experience with that can be a hugely valuable addition to the conversation and to our approach. So in a long way of answering that, Dr. Joy, I really think it's about involving people from the very beginning of, here's our goals, here's where we are, here's our challenges, here's what we think we may be able to do. What do you think? Great. What do you think? And being able to also allow people within that the freedom to be able to explore certain ideas. Maybe they'll work, maybe they won't. But if we allow some of that freedom, and we say, yeah, actually that one could be interesting. This could work. Why don't you work on that for a little bit, and then let's see if that's a path worth going down, because not all paths are worth going down. So I think it's really in involving them from the very beginning.
Thank you.
What a great question, and brilliantly answered by our friend Brandi. Brilliantly. Sharon is the, she has raised hand. Judy, I think we should definitely, yes. Oh, clap from Brandi. Sharon, please go ahead.
Hi, Brandi.
Unmute yourself.
You said something at the very beginning that really resonated with me that we have in common. You got into first of all, you said you never saw yourself doing what you're doing now. Can you see yourself doing anything but what you're doing right now?
Yes. And I think that also sometimes requires me to make sure that I stay really focused. But I think here's the thing. Getting into doing something like this, but I think it would hold true with anything. But for me, getting into agriculture and getting into really listening to what communities need, from my call before this, where we're talking with, communities in Colombia, to another call where I'm talking about Papua New Guinea, I learn so much about what's actually going on in the communities, and I see so many other opportunities, down to how can we really be able to make change by empowering women in different vocations and making sure that they've got equal access to education and opportunities. That's a huge one. So that's something that's a part of our approach as Farm from a Box in terms of agriculture and technology, but it certainly expands beyond that too. So while I'm really passionate about the direction that we're going in, and I'm certainly not letting off of the gas pedal, after this, there's all kinds of other things that I could see myself being really excited about diving into also. And the fun part is, I think, to get into discussions with people, and maybe that's the path for them to be able to go down. I mean, when you see a challenge that doesn't necessarily have a solution quite yet, there's different ways to be able to contribute to that without doing it full time too.
And that was the first part of my question. I also never thought I would ever, my company Field Experience is in workforce development. We start with what we call power skills that other people call soft skills, but those are the transferable skills. And after 30 plus years in the sports and entertainment industry, founded Field Experience, it's been a very, very difficult road professionally and personally over the last 4 years. So when you say that you see other things that need to be fixed, what resonates with me is, yes, when you go down that path, you start seeing that. But when I work with these young people, they have it in their mind that I'm going to be X, Y, and Z. And the message back is you can be many different things throughout your life on this planet. And the key that you did say was you have had a team of people that you trust, and they were all in it, and experts that kind of surrounded you. Were you ever in a situation where you didn't have people and you went down some of those paths that weren't the right path to go down and then reset?
Oh, that's a great question. I'm sure I have, but I will say that if anything, I really, I don't mind leaning into my humble state and saying, I have no idea how to approach distribution agreements in a different country. So let me make sure that I'm calling in the people that I need to be able to speak to, or even in a different way. You mentioned soft skills, because I personally think that soft skills have been deeply undervalued within the business world, within life, period. And that I think that's really changing. I'm seeing much more importance really be provided and given to the development of soft skills and the honoring of it. So I think in that is also this interesting spot where we need to make sure that we're also understanding of different cultures and different ways of approaching things, and that not everybody's going to understand my communication the way that it feels clear to me. And there's nuances. So I think it's really important for us to make sure that we're also aware of some of those nuances, and that we bring in experts that are much more connected and tied to that. But that makes me want to say one other thing too, which is around expertise. I think expertise can also be a crutch. And there's a power dynamic to expertise. If we only lean on expertise, then that's leaving out all of the people that haven't necessarily been deemed experts, but have extremely valuable experience. And for one reason or another, systematic challenges, all of the reasons that we know why some people are not up leveled to the level of expert, I think that that's really important to make sure that the advice and counsel that we get is broad, and it's not just at the top. We need to make sure, exactly, it's diverse, it's broad. We're speaking with users as much as we humanly can, because just leaning on top-down expertise means we're just kind of repeating the same pattern that has been done forever, and we're really missing a lot of things that are happening at this sort of grassroots community user level too. So it's a little bit of a balance. So when I refer to expertise, I'm really meaning I want to talk to the farmer out in the field. I want to talk to the women that have been selling the tomatoes and can't find access to the market. And I want to talk broadly.
Wow, what great advice, Brandi. Thank you so much for your non-expertise, I guess. But for your openness and for your willingness to learn and to involve so many people. We thank you so much for being here today. And we look forward to hearing more from you.
Well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I hope something that I shared is valuable in terms of the things that I've learned too. And it's really a pleasure for me to be able to connect with everyone.
Awesome. We don't have enough words to say thank you, Brandi. And I know.
Well, and